I'm begging the Democratic establishment to just consider how much of a target-rich environment Gavin Newsom happens to be. Yes. Look at his leadership in the state of California.
That was from the panel discussion on CNN last night, where clearly I had strong opinions about Gavin Newsom and how, despite what the Democrats nationally think, locally here in California, anyone who lives in this state knows that Gavin Newsom's leadership has been pretty disastrous, which would make him a target-rich environment as the Democratic candidate in the 2028 presidential election. But make no mistake about it, Gavin Newsom is planning to run, and he's not even really hiding it. Take a look.
I'm looking forward to who presents themselves in 2028 and who meets that moment. And that's the question for the American people.
Is it fair to say after the 2026 midterms, you're going to give it serious thought?
Yeah, I'd be lying otherwise. I'd just be lying, and I can't do that.
I don't think anyone was under the impression that Newsom had given up his political aspirations. He's been eyeing the White House probably from the moment he was born. And that's clear in the way he's neglected his duties as the governor of California and has instead engaged in political campaigning for a presidential role. But Newsom isn't the only establishment Democrat who is in fact gearing up for a 2028 bid. If you could believe it, former Vice President Kamala Harris was not at all deterred by the experience of running for president not once but twice and losing not once but twice. Let's hear a little bit from her.
In terms then of what is next for you, you write very powerfully about the differences that many women have made to your life, whether that was your meeting with Angela Merkel or the experience of growing up with your extraordinary mother or the stories of your baby nieces, Amara and Leela. When are they going to see a woman in charge in the White House?
In their lifetime, for sure.
Could it be you?
Possibly.
Have you made a decision yet?
No, I have not.
But what do Democratic voters think about that? Well, Harris weighs in on that issue as well. Take a look.
In my experience interviewing politicians, when someone says I'm not done, it means they are thinking seriously about running. But when you look at the bookies' odds, they put you as an outsider, even behind Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I mean, is that underestimating you?
I think there are all kinds of polls that will tell you a variety of things. I've never listened to polls. If I listened to polls, I would have not run for my first office or my second office. And I certainly wouldn't be sitting here in this interview.
What do you think about that, Cenk? Kamala Harris essentially pouring cold water on the polls. She doesn't like to pay attention to the polls. What are your thoughts?
I think she's right. If she had paid attention to the polls, she wouldn't be sitting there. She'd be sitting in the White House. Instead, when the polls told her, hey, stop bragging about all the corporate CEOs backing your campaign, she wouldn't listen. When the polls showed, hey, stop bear hugging Liz and Dick Cheney, they're sitting at 9% and 13% popularity, she wouldn't listen. No matter what the polls said, she wouldn't listen. Biden wouldn't listen. Biden, you're in the mid-30s. No incumbent has ever won in the 40s, let alone the 30s. What are you doing? Nope, I don't listen to polls. I don't listen. That's basically saying, I don't listen to the American people. I don't care what they think at all. Democratic voters, who cares? I got anointed, and I'm going to get anointed again. Well, this time around, nobody's going to get anointed. So I think she's going to have a rude awakening there. And like in the past, if you were the earlier Democratic candidate, Anna, there was this fawning from the media, and you saw a little bit of that in that interview. Oh, tell us about your brave mother and daughter and how it's got to be a woman. No. Tell me about how the policies will affect women. That's relevant. Don't tell me, oh no, you have to vote for someone because they're a woman and they had a nice mother and daughter. We all have nice mothers and daughters, I hope. So that's not relevant to any of this. And it looks like they haven't learned it all. To be fair to Gavin, he's at least being honest, because normally cheesy politicians go, oh no, I would never think of any office but the one I'm currently holding up. Oh, further ambitions. It's never once crossed my mind. And I'm like, oh, come on, guys, come on. Can we just get past it? So here, definitely Gavin and partly Kamala seem to have gotten past it, where they're like, yeah, of course I'm thinking of running for president. What else would I do? That makes sense.
What's amazing to me is, while they might have these lofty goals because they want that position of power, have they reflected on their own political leadership? I mean, it's just, more so Gavin Newsom, to be honest with you, because Gavin Newsom has an incredibly important role as governor of California. And under his leadership, I mean, the state has squandered $24 billion in taxpayer money that was meant to help the homeless. That money gone. Okay, we're still doing audits trying to figure out where it is. Homelessness has exploded in the state. It hasn't gotten better. On top of that, he has all sorts of corporate donors, including the utility companies here in the state, which he did favors for, bailed out, even though they refused to upgrade and update their over 100-year-old equipment, which keeps falling onto dry brush and causing devastating wildfires. I don't know if you know this, Cenk, but the state currently owes the federal government more than $20 billion because of the way we handled the unemployment funds that the federal government gave us during the COVID pandemic. So remember, there were they bolstered the unemployment funds on a federal level. So during COVID, when these shutdowns happened, people who were forced to stay home would be made whole. Well, it turns out that there was so much fraud. There was very little oversight of that money, and that fraud amounted to $55 billion. That's billion with a B. Okay, and now we have about 20 billion left to pay back to the federal government. And we keep missing the deadline to pay that money. So all of the businesses that operate in the state of California, whether they're big corporations or small businesses, now have to pay a per employee payroll tax or a penalty in order to get that money paid back as soon as possible. So think about the high taxes in this state. Think about how little we get for that money. Think about how much of our resources have been squandered under the leadership of Gavin Newsom. And then on top of that, on top of all those expensive business taxes and taxes for ordinary American workers in the state, now these small businesses are forced to pay an additional payroll tax per employee to make up that massive debt that we owe to the federal government, because Gavin Newsom and the political leadership in the state couldn't be bothered to do the proper oversight to ensure that that money didn't go to fraudsters. So I know I'm going on and on and on, but I have endless complaints about Gavin Newsom. And the reason why I was begging that panel, and more importantly, Neera Tanden, who was on that panel, to take into account how poorly he led the state of California, is because he is a target-rich environment. And so we're gonna make it all the way to the 2028 presidential election. Gavin Newsom is a snake oil salesman, and people love appearances, and they think he looks young and he looks like a politician. He's got the slick back hair. He's probably gonna win the nomination, and he is going to be politically destroyed because he is a target-rich environment. So that's my take on it. I know there's people in the audience who don't care. They just want, a messiah or someone to save them in the Democratic Party. Anyone who can beat these Republicans. And I understand the urge to want someone who can beat the Republicans. But at the same time, right now is when the vetting should happen. Right now is when we should be asking ourselves the difficult questions in regard to who is the best Democratic candidate to go up against the Republicans. And my opinion is Gavin Newsom ain't it. What do you think, Cenk?
Yeah, so I have a more complicated, calculus on California, and so I think this is a great state. I think we have paid family leave that most of the country doesn't have. We have higher minimum wage, which has driven up wages, which, by the way, has not hurt our economy. And we, even with a very high minimum wage, we're still the richest state by a lot. So there's a lot of good things in California. And then there are the issues that you brought up, which are also true. So two things can be true at the same time. Look, I don't think a lot of people are looking for a messiah in this audience. I was just reading through the comments of the members. They largely agree with you, Anna. And so at some point, we are gonna need someone to win, right? And so you can call that a messiah, you can call it a candidate, but you need someone to actually deliver, right? And if it turns out that no one steps up who isn't a corporate candidate and or hasn't changed or whatever, and no one delivers, yeah, then I think it's a death knell for the Democratic Party. But that's why I think it's so monumentally important to pick the right person in this primary. I think there's really good news that the primary is basically starting now, because we need as long as we can to vet folks, to hear them out in interviews. And to be fair to Gavin and now all of a sudden Kamala Harris, who's apparently, zeal to converted a little tiny bit, they are finally doing interviews. Like not Gavin, Gavin's been doing interviews throughout, but Kamala Harris like, oh right, interviews, free media. I don't know why I missed that earlier. Could have helped earlier, right? When she was in the middle of that campaign. So I like that they're out there. Although ironically, as we're gonna see in the polling here, one of the guys who dips his toe in, but is not in media as much these days, is doing really well. We'll get to that in a second. Last thing is, in those panels, Anna, on CNN, you throw them for such a loop because they're expecting you to be in a box. And they're like, okay, here's the right winger, here's the left winger. Okay, now you guys fight over partisan brain, right? And the others are exact on that panel last night were 200% partisan brain. Republicans are great and everything. I mean, the same thing you were saying, the opposite of what you were saying just like a couple of years ago when Biden was in charge. It's maddening, and the Democrats flipped to the other side. You're the only one who's staying consistent and saying things that are true, so it's refreshing. So let's take a look at the polling and see who's leading now and give our thoughts on that.
So Semaphore revealed a new poll that was conducted by a group called Welcome. They describe themselves as center left. So this is coming from a polling agency that has a political bent. And according to Welcome's polling, Democratic voters are looking for a candidate who supports economic populism with moderate stances on issues like crime, immigration, and identity politics. Which I could have told you, I don't know, a few years ago. Actually, I was telling people a few years ago, but that made me a TERF apparently. But nonetheless, Welcome conducted the survey over 6 months and contacted hundreds of thousands of voters. The organization was originally created by a political action committee, but later formed a research organization for polls like the one that we're about to explain. So here are the results of the polls that they've conducted. According to Welcome, here's what Democrats absolutely want to avoid: a pivot to corporate centrism and the pursuit of progressive ideology purity. I mean, already, I totally agree with this. This doesn't surprise me at all, but there's more. So Welcome states that Democrats have focused far too much on highly educated and affluent voters. Meanwhile, according to Welcome, 70% of voters think the Democratic Party is out of touch. So that kind of plays into the elitism criticism that the Democratic establishment has been getting for multiple election cycles now. Most voters, the group found, believe the party over prioritizes issues like protecting the rights of LGBTQ plus Americans and fighting climate change, while not caring about securing the border or lowering the rate of crime. It turns out that people are concerned about things like public safety. That is very shocking, isn't it? They also need to fight for working class Americans, according to what their poll results found. The report reads, quote, "We have much to learn from the relentless focus of Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Zoran Mamdani on the topics of economic opportunity and lower cost of living." So I feel like I'm just kind of relaying obvious information to you all, so I apologize if you're bored. But I do think that there are some who need to hear this message. It's really important if the Democrats want to start winning elections again.
Yeah, so we've got a poll up on TYT.com. If you're forced to vote now in the Democratic primary, and these were your only choice, who would you vote for? Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, or AOC. Now, we didn't put Ro Khanna or Jon Stewart or any of the other folks that we like in that poll because it would have made it a little bit easier. What we want is your real opinion among those choices, and it might still be easy for you guys. It might be very easy, but I don't know. I'm curious. That's why I wanted to find out. Buttigieg is doing well in a recent poll that came out where they compared those candidates. Now, part of the reason for that is mainstream media restricts your choices, right? So they don't often put Ro Khanna in the polls. Sometimes they do, but they also don't often cover him as a potential presidential candidate, Democratic leader. They're not terrible to him. It's actually much better than it used to be. But overall, like Jon Stewart's never in any of the polls. I get it. He hasn't announced. He hasn't done anything. He, by all accounts, doesn't want to run, etc. Right? So I'm not overly blaming for them for that. But the way that mainstream media thinks is, no, it has to be a corporate Democrat. So I'm going to give you a bunch of choices, corporate Democrats, and then I'll throw in AOC, who's like establishment-y on culture wars, but not as much on others. And obviously she's winning in our audience. The voting just got started. That's not so overly surprising, but that she's head and shoulders at least above the other corporate Democrats. But like the idea that the media is going to push is not what are the choices you have among 330 million people, but what are the choices you have between Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, and Gavin Newsom. And so be wary of that trap that the media is setting for you right now. Okay, now to the substance of the poll that Anna quoted about the policies. I mean, look, guys, there's no way to avoid saying, sorry, but we were totally right? And so look, that should matter. Forget everyone else, forget the other shows, forget other folks. I'm just saying for you guys in the audience, it should matter who's right and not, right? So if you listen to the wrong show, you're gonna back the wrong people, and you're gonna back the wrong ideas, and we're gonna go nowhere. We're gonna spin our wheels, right? So what did we tell you guys? You all know it. It was pretty spectacular, right? The way that we were attacked for saying things that were, to me and Anna, obviously true. We said, look, we gotta go towards economic populism, the Bernie Sanders message from 2016. And if you go towards corporate centrism, that's a disastrous idea. That's the idea we dislike the most. And the polling indicates that perfectly, right? Then you go to the other side. But we said that doesn't mean that we're just on a left-right political spectrum and that no matter what, you should go max left. But don't go max left and pretend there's no crime when people are pissed about crime. Don't pretend that there's no problem at the border when there's obviously a problem at the border. And these identity politics and the culture wars are not helping us. It's gone too far. I know the Republicans set a trap, but don't fall into the trap. And the polling indicates every single thing we said was true. So okay, it's not about personalities, guys. So if you say, yeah, I don't really care. I don't care that you were right. I just care that those ideas were right. Perfect, beautiful, yes. Who cares about who said it? The point is, make sure you don't get off that path, because the mainstream media is gonna try to veer you off to right-wing economic corporate establishment ideas. Oh, make sure you pick Buttigieg. Buttigieg is gonna give you a perfect sense of what the donors want, and the donors will be so happy. No. You're definitely gonna lose if you go in that direction. And if you go, well, okay, we're gonna be left and we're gonna stand for everything and we're gonna be max. And okay, the next president has to be a Muslim, queer, black woman. No, what are you doing? I know that's an absurd example. No one actually says that, right? But there are plenty of people who say you shouldn't call someone a woman. And that was insane. And we were attacked for saying the most logical, reasonable things that now all of the polling and all the electoral results have confirmed.
Just take care of people's actual needs. It's that simple, right?
Yes.
People are suffering and no one is actually addressing the causes of their suffering. So address that. Okay, and then we can do language policing when we live in a utopia where everyone's needs are met. But we're nowhere near that right now.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.